The Field was the inaugural exhibition of the NGV's new premises on St Kilda Road, and it opened in 1968. And the curatorial premise of the Field was to define an entire direction of Australian art which had not previously been tackled by a major institution in Australia. Curator John Stringer travelled on a sabbatical, a 9-month sabbatical in the years prior to New York and Europe, and while in New York he visited Andy Warhol at the factory and brought back this idea of these foil-lined walls. It was a landmark exhibition in Australian art history, and it featured the work of 40 artists who were practising in hard-edge, colour-field, geometric, patterned abstraction and abstract sculpture. When the Field opened, it wasn't that Australian audiences hadn't seen hard-edge colour-field work before. The work itself was not controversial, but its selection for such an important event was. Many artists felt left out of such an important occasion, and there were many critics who believed that the exhibition should have told a more inclusive history of Australian art rather than a focus on predominantly emerging artists who were practising in an international stylistic tendency. What we're hoping from this recreation, one thing from the visitor experience is just how contemporary the works still are today. We thought, what better way to celebrate the 50th anniversary than try and bring all the works back together. We first looked at the NGV collection where out of the 74 works we have 3, so it was 3 down, 71 to go. This led us to going to other institutions, the artists, private collectors. By the time the exhibition opened, I determined the fate of 62 of these 74 works. There was the decision of what we did with the missing works. The original catalogue had black and white images, and we've used that black and white image from the catalogue, and we've marked them throughout the exhibition so that when people move through the exhibition space, they understand that these works are a memory, are a ghost of the missing work. If we'd removed those works, then it would not nearly have been as successful to capture that original 68 exhibition. Working with the design team, we've gone with an authentic approach by using the silver foil coloured walls. Also, we've kept the original partitioned walls, which have the steel poles going up the centre. It's how it was done 50 years ago, so we've remained authentic with that. So one of my favourite works in the Field and the Field Revisited is Robert Jacks's work Red Painting, which was actually completed in February 1968 prior to his knowledge of the Field, and he completed it just as he was about to head over to New York, where he met Solowit and Donald Judd, and is where he became fully seduced by minimalism. Prior to the Field, he had studied at RMIT, and in 1966 he held his first solo exhibition, which was a critical success, complete sellout show. It was a display of very lyrical, poetic abstraction with Brancusi-inspired totems and bird-like forms. It was incredibly beautiful, and the works were named after all from lines of Ulysses. Following this show, he met James Doolin, who was an American hard-edge artist who had trained in Philadelphia and had come out to Australia to teach. And he brought with him first-hand experience of the American art scene and colour-filled hard-edge abstraction. This, along with the 1967 exhibition, 2 Decades of American Art, were incredibly transformative for Robert Jacks. And there is a complete shift in Robert's work from 66 to 67, where he goes from this very lyrical abstraction to very minimal, hard-edge, colour-filled works. And it is an iconic work from the Field, and it really made a resounding statement about abstraction in Australia. Colour-field painting has its origins in America, and it emerged there in the 1940s and 50s. And it went in tandem with the development of synthetic emulsion paints, acrylic paints. And so there was this focus on the colour, and you had these areas of cool, even, flat colour, often shaped canvases. And by the 50s and 60s, it began to spread to Britain, Europe and Australia, and it was by that time you started to see the introduction of patterns and geometry within the works. And there were a lot of artists who began using house paints, but artists were also experimenting with car lacquer, automotive paints, and there was this idea that the picture did not have to be limited to the traditional form of the square or the rectangle, and so there was this sort of explosion from these traditional shapes. From a conservation perspective, there are a few things which are a little bit different to 1968. For instance, the display of sculptures. Now we have to be very mindful of OH&S safety issues, of egress, of how we move around and how we engage with sculptures. We've been very lucky in the sense that we have been able to go quite bright with the lighting. If there are works which are sensitive, for instance works on paper, fashion and textiles, there's a maximum lighting of 50 lux. However, we've been able to go much, much higher in this exhibition because the nature of the works is that they're less light sensitive. Of course, we pay attention to humidity, and we try and keep the humidity at 50%, give or take 5. The gallery's kept it at about 20 degrees to make sure that the works don't have any sort of change which could affect the structure of, say, the stretcher or the strainer for a canvas. We first began working on this in 2014. Unfortunately, people didn't document 50 years ago the way people document now, and we only have about 7 interior shots of the exhibition in our own archives, and one of the designers and I worked with these 7 images of the interior, and she produced a doll's house version of the exhibition space with all the little walls. And we sat there and we worked laying out the original exhibitions. And then we had a model of the 2018 exhibition spaces, and we moved the works as closely as possible into the 2018 model so that you walk past the works in the same way that you would have walked past them 50 years ago. The promotion of the Field Revisited has taken a number of different outlets. In 2016, we actually started a rather large campaign which had its own hashtag, which was #FindTheField, where we did a call to media through newspaper, online, radio, and Tony Elwood even went on ABC Breakfast. Now that the exhibition's opened, it's been promoted through different social media platforms. The opening event was a very big affair. Out of the 40 participating artists in the field, there are 16 artists who are still alive, and 13 attended the opening. For a lot of the families, the opening was a chance to celebrate not only the exhibition, but the families a chance to celebrate artists who had passed away.